Most genealogists search newspapers for obituaries, but that's just the beginning. Newspapers are actually one of the richest places to discover the stories behind your ancestors' lives. Today I want to show you 5 things you can find in newspapers that help you build your family story, and some of these are things many genealogists completely overlook. I'm Ellen Thompson-Jennings, the Family History Hound, so let's get started. First, let's look at social columns. One of the most overlooked treasures in newspapers is the social column. These are short little notes like this one. Mrs. Captain H. Esford and Miss Annie Batten have returned from a visit to Toronto, Niagara Falls, and Buffalo. After further examination of other newspapers, I found that Annie Batten went to Buffalo quite often, almost as a yearly visit, which would lead me to believe that she's probably visiting family. This type of article can include where relatives lived, who visited with whom, travel patterns, friendships, community connections, and sometimes they introduce relatives you didn't even know existed, like this is the case with Annie Batten. These tiny notices help you build what genealogists call the fan club, friends, associates, and neighbors. Now let's look at obituaries, which is one of the most familiar newspaper records, but they're also one of the most valuable. You can almost build an entire tree, sometimes just with the information that you get out of an obituary. And of course, it's not just the death dates. Obituaries often include married daughters' surnames, siblings and extended family, migration stories, occupations, church membership, and community involvement. And this one that I'm sharing with you of Captain W.G. Batten is an example of just the kind of information that you're getting from this one little document where it tells about his occupation and how he moved up within the industry, and also the names of his sisters and who he was the grandson of. So a very much a wealth of information just from one document. They show how someone was remembered as well, and that helps you understand how they fit in their community, not just in your family tree. Wedding announcements can be something short and sweet like this one, or they can be much more. In some cases, it will be a detailed description of the entire wedding, listing the bride and groom's name, their parents' name, who the guests were, what everybody wore to the wedding, who had what jobs, like the ushers and the best men, and including on this one, the name of the soloist, and who in fact was my mother's uncle. And so it can be something like this, but there's also other announcements that come in the newspapers, such as that, where it gives just the names of the guests and who attended. And so this is in addition to the full-on article that was written about the marriage. Your ancestors didn't have to be famous to appear in the newspaper. Local papers reported everyday life events like illnesses, accidents, travel, anniversaries, club meetings, legal matters, and business openings, and in the case of this article, where my father did canvassing for the Heart Fund. These small mentions place your ancestors inside their community. Suddenly, they're not just somebody listed in a census record, they're somebody people knew. Our fifth item to look at in newspapers, and something you may not have looked at before, is advertising. Advertising can tell you where your ancestor worked, or what business they owned, what service they may have offered, or just what stores existed in their town, and it gives us a glimpse at what everyday life looked like around them. If your ancestor ran a shop, a farm operation, or a boarding house, there's a good chance they advertised locally. But even if they didn't advertise themselves, advertisements help you understand their world. What were people buying? What tools were farmers using? What clothing styles were available? It's kind of amazing when you look at this advertisement, and this is from the 1960s, how reasonably priced food was then compared to what it is today. So it just gives you some more context for where your people lived and what they did. So where can you find all these newspapers? Well, you can find these articles at newspapers.com, Ancestry's newspaper collection, MyHeritage Old News, British Newspaper Archives, Chronicling America, Storied's newspaper archives. Local public libraries often have access to many of these collections. Local genealogical societies often have these same collections available, and local historical societies. State archives, digital newspaper projects, provincial archives, digitized newspaper projects. These are especially helpful in Canada. So Google search, put your town name and your historical newspaper archive, whatever that might be, and see what you find when you search Google. If you'd like to start building rich stories about your ancestors, choose one person in your tree and try searching the newspapers where they lived. Don't just search your ancestor's name. You might also try searching their spouse's name, their children, their address, their occupation, or the town name with their surname. Some of the best newspaper discoveries appear when your ancestor wasn't even the main subject of the article. Because newspapers don't just tell us where our ancestors lived, they actually tell us how they lived. If your ancestor lived there, check their newspaper. I hope you found this helpful, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell to be notified when new videos are launched. Happy hunting!